How kindness will ruin your life. In today's world, kindness is often seen as one of the highest virtues. We are encouraged to be kind to others, show compassion, and extend a helping hand. However, from a Stoic perspective, kindness, while an admirable quality, can be a double-edged sword that, if not carefully balanced, can lead to our own downfall. The Stoic philosophy, rooted in the teachings of ancient philosophers such as Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, places great emphasis on living according to nature, maintaining control over one's emotions, and focusing on what is within our control. Stoicism teaches that we should prioritize wisdom, self-discipline, and virtue above all else, yet it offers a nuanced view on kindness. The pitfall of excessive kindness. At first glance, kindness might appear to be an unambiguously positive virtue. In modern culture, kindness is frequently praised as a hallmark of moral goodness, compassion, and empathy. However, when examined through the lens of Stoic philosophy, excessive kindness reveals certain dangers that, if unchecked, can undermine one's ability to live a virtuous, peaceful life. Stoicism, at its core, is concerned with living in accordance with reason and virtue. The Stoic philosophers, particularly Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, emphasize the importance of distinguishing between what is within our control and what is not, and acting with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. The concept of virtue from a Stoic perspective is about maintaining control over one's emotions and actions, responding to external circumstances with reason, and focusing on what truly matters for our inner peace and tranquility. So where does excessive kindness fit into this framework, and why might it be a potential pitfall? Kindness versus self-sacrifice, the fine line. Kindness, in its essence, is a virtuous quality. It involves showing compassion, offering assistance, and caring for others' well-being. From a Stoic perspective, helping others can be a manifestation of the virtue of justice, which is about acting fairly and promoting the common good. However, excessive kindness occurs when we place the needs and desires of others above our own well-being, leading to self-sacrifice or the loss of personal boundaries. The Stoics advocate for self-sufficiency and the importance of preserving one's own inner peace and virtue. When kindness is practiced excessively or with the wrong motives, it can lead to a state of dependency on external validation. This, in turn, detracts from one's ability to cultivate wisdom, temperance, and personal integrity. A key danger here is that excessive kindness can result in neglecting self-care, or worse, abandoning one's values in order to please others. People-pleasing, the hidden motivation behind excessive kindness. One of the central dangers of excessive kindness is its potential to be motivated by a need for external approval, what is commonly known as people-pleasing. In the Stoic worldview, our happiness and tranquility should not depend on the opinions or expectations of others. The pursuit of kindness with the goal of gaining approval, avoiding conflict, or fulfilling the desires of others compromises one's autonomy and self-respect. People-pleasing arises when we go out of our way to satisfy others' expectations or to be liked, often at the expense of our own values and needs. From a Stoic perspective, this behavior is deeply problematic for several reasons. 1. Loss of integrity. When kindness is motivated by a desire to gain approval, it may lead to actions that are not aligned with our true values or the rational order. We may say yes to requests or give of ourselves in ways that don't genuinely reflect our principles or best interests, leading to an erosion of personal integrity. 2. Emotional turmoil. The Stoics teach that emotions are often a result of irrational thinking and attachments. If you are excessively kind in order to receive external validation or avoid conflict, you are placing your emotional well-being in the hands of others. This is a recipe for anxiety, disappointment, and resentment, as external validation is fleeting and unreliable. 3. Loss of control. Stoic philosophy emphasizes the importance of maintaining control over our own actions and thoughts. Excessive kindness can lead to a loss of self-control, as we become driven by the external approval of others. Instead of acting from a place of reason and wisdom, we may find ourselves constantly reacting to the needs and desires of others. The trap of overextending oneself. Excessive kindness often manifests as overextension when we give more of ourselves, time, energy, resources than we have available or are comfortable with. This overgiving can lead to burnout, frustration, and feelings of being unappreciated, especially if the kindness is not reciprocated or valued in the way we expect. The Stoics caution against becoming overly attached to the outcomes of our actions, and this is especially important when it comes to kindness. When we give selflessly, we should not expect anything in return, nor should we be disappointed if our kindness is not acknowledged. If we constantly give without establishing clear boundaries or without the expectation of reciprocity, we risk depleting our own resources and neglecting our own needs, which undermines our ability to live virtuously and maintain inner peace. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, reflects on the importance of recognizing our limits and the need to preserve our energy for that which aligns with virtue. Giving excessively can sometimes take us away from our own path of virtue and self-development, as we may lose sight of what is truly important, living in harmony with nature and focusing on what we can control. The Stoic ideal of balanced kindness. The Stoics do not reject kindness, rather, they advocate for balanced kindness, one that aligns with virtue, reason, and moderation. Stoicism teaches that we should act justly, with wisdom, and in accordance with what is best for the common good. However, true kindness from a Stoic perspective is not about sacrificing one's own well-being or values to make others happy. Instead, it involves helping others from a place of inner strength, wisdom, and self-sufficiency. Some key elements of balanced kindness in Stoic terms include: 1. Setting boundaries. Kindness must be practiced with clear boundaries to protect your own emotional and physical health. A Stoic is aware of their own limitations and understands that it is not virtuous to give endlessly at the cost of their own tranquility or integrity. It is essential to know when to say no and preserve one's peace of mind. 2. Acting with wisdom. Kindness should be informed by wisdom and reason. A Stoic asks themselves whether their actions truly align with their values and whether their kindness is being extended for the right reasons, without ulterior motives or a desire for external rewards. 3. No attachment to results. The Stoic understands that they cannot control how others respond to their kindness. It is essential to act in alignment with virtue, regardless of whether others appreciate it or reciprocate. By removing attachment to the outcomes, one can practice kindness without expecting anything in return. 4. Focusing on justice. Stoic kindness is also tied to justice, acting in ways that promote fairness and harmony, not out of a desire for approval or personal gain. It is important to assess whether kindness contributes to the greater good and aligns with the rational order of nature, as justice is a higher virtue than kindness alone. The path to true kindness. In conclusion, excessive kindness can lead to several dangers when practiced without wisdom or balance. The Stoic approach teaches that kindness must be guided by reason, virtue, and a deep understanding of one's own needs and limitations. By avoiding the traps of people-pleasing, overextending oneself, and sacrificing one's own values, we can cultivate a kind yet resilient character that remains true to Stoic principles. The Stoic ideal of kindness is one that is rooted in self-sufficiency, emotional discipline, and justice. It involves helping others, but without attachment to outcomes or the expectation of validation. In this way, kindness becomes a virtuous and empowering act, fostering harmony with others while preserving the Stoics' inner tranquility and moral integrity. The danger of people-pleasing. People-pleasing is a behavioral pattern that many individuals fall into without realizing its potential harm to their emotional well-being and personal growth. At its core, people-pleasing is driven by the desire to gain approval, avoid conflict, and ensure social acceptance. While these desires are natural, the Stoic philosophy presents a powerful critique of people-pleasing behaviors, highlighting how they can undermine the pursuit of virtue, inner peace, and true freedom. In Stoic thought, happiness and tranquility are not derived from external validation or approval from others. Instead, they come from living in alignment with reason, practicing virtue, and cultivating self-sufficiency. In this context, people-pleasing becomes a barrier to genuine fulfillment, because it makes one's emotional and mental state dependent on external factors, something the Stoics firmly reject. People-pleasing and the loss of autonomy. One of the most significant dangers of people-pleasing is the loss of autonomy. The Stoics emphasize that true freedom comes from self-control, wisdom, and the ability to act in alignment with our own rational principles, regardless of external influences. When a person is excessively focused on pleasing others, they risk losing sight of their own values, desires, and needs, instead living in constant reaction to the expectations of others. In Stoic terms, autonomy is the ability to act in accordance with one's own judgment, independent of outside influences or the opinions of others. People-pleasing strips away this autonomy, as the individual becomes overly focused on conforming to the desires, expectations, and approval of others. This dependency on external validation can create a cycle where a person constantly adjusts their actions, thoughts, and behaviors to gain acceptance, never truly acting as their authentic self. Over time, this erodes one's ability to act freely and rationally, which is the cornerstone of Stoic living. The emotional cost, anxiety, resentment, and discontent. Another key danger of people-pleasing is the emotional toll it takes on the individual. In the short term, pleasing others may seem to bring about a sense of satisfaction or relief, as it temporarily avoids conflict or ensures acceptance. However, over time, this behavior leads to emotional turmoil and dissatisfaction for several reasons. 1. Anxiety and fear of rejection. People-pleasers often live in fear of rejection or criticism. They constantly worry about how others perceive them and go to great lengths to ensure others are happy, even at the expense of their own well-being. This fear of rejection creates anxiety and stress, as the person becomes consumed with the idea of maintaining favorable perceptions and avoiding disapproval. In Stoic terms, this is an irrational attachment to external outcomes, which are beyond our control. 2. Resentment and self-neglect. Over time, people-pleasers may begin to feel resentment because they are continuously sacrificing their own needs, desires, and values to meet the expectations of others. This self-neglect builds emotional tension as the person feels unappreciated, unfulfilled, and drained. Stoicism teaches that we should prioritize living in accordance with our own values, principles, and that self-respect is a prerequisite for acting justly and wisely. When we neglect our own needs for the sake of others, we betray this principle and set ourselves up for resentment. 3. Lack of true fulfillment. While pleasing others may offer temporary feelings of acceptance, people-pleasers often find that they are not truly fulfilled by these interactions. The satisfaction derived from external validation is fleeting, and it does not bring the deeper, lasting sense of happiness that comes from acting in line with one's own virtue and rational judgment. In Stoic philosophy, fulfillment comes not from the approval of others, but from living with integrity, wisdom, and virtue, regardless of the external circumstances. The Stoic critique, the desire for approval. At the heart of people-pleasing is the desire for approval, a need to be liked, accepted, or valued by others. This is an irrational attachment in Stoic terms, as approval from others is entirely outside of our control. The Stoics argue that attaching our happiness to the approval of others is not only unwise but also damaging to our personal growth. Stoic philosophers like Epictetus emphasize that we must focus on what is within our control and not allow external judgments to dictate our emotional state. Epictetus, for instance, famously said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In this context, the Stoics would advise against seeking approval from others because we cannot control whether others approve of us. And basing our happiness on something uncontrollable will only lead to frustration and discontent. True contentment comes from living in alignment with our own rational principles, not from pandering to the desires of others. The dangers of people-pleasing in relationships. In relationships, whether personal, professional, or social, people-pleasing can create imbalanced dynamics. When one person constantly seeks to please the other, it may lead to unhealthy power structures where one person's needs are continually prioritized over the others. This can result in codependency, a lack of mutual respect, and an erosion of the authentic self in both parties. From a Stoic perspective, true relationships are based on mutual respect, honesty, and virtue, not manipulation or a one-sided desire to gain approval. By focusing on pleasing others, a person may lose sight of the importance of justice in relationships, which the Stoics define as the fair treatment of others while maintaining one's integrity. Stoicism teaches that relationships should be founded on equality and shared virtue, not on the transactional behavior of trying to win approval at all costs. The Stoic solution: focus on virtue, not validation. The Stoic solution to the problem of people-pleasing is to focus on virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, rather than seeking external validation. The Stoics urge us to act according to our values and principles, regardless of how others perceive us. Virtue, for the Stoics, is the only true good, and it is only by practicing virtue that we achieve true fulfillment, peace of mind, and happiness. Key Stoic practices for overcoming the temptation to people-please include: 1. Self-reflection. Regularly engage in self-reflection to ensure that your actions are driven by your true values and not by the need to gain approval. Ask yourself, are my actions aligned with wisdom and virtue, or am I acting out of fear or the desire for external validation? 2. Setting boundaries. The Stoics emphasize the importance of setting clear boundaries to protect one's time, energy, and emotional well-being. It is essential to recognize when pleasing others becomes detrimental to your own virtue and well-being. Saying no is sometimes the most virtuous action. 3. Focusing on what is in your control. Recall the Stoic principle of the dichotomy of control, the idea that we can only control our thoughts, actions, and responses, not how others react. By internalizing this principle, you can free yourself from the need for approval and focus on what you can control, living virtuously. 4. Living authentically. Stoicism encourages us to live authentically, to be true to ourselves, and to act according to reason and virtue. By focusing on what is right, rather than what is easy or approved by others, we cultivate inner strength and resilience. Reclaiming inner peace. In conclusion, the danger of people-pleasing lies in its ability to compromise one's autonomy, emotional well-being, and pursuit of virtue. The Stoic approach encourages us to focus on developing inner strength and self-sufficiency, acting in alignment with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, regardless of external approval. People-pleasing behavior ultimately leads to anxiety, resentment, and a loss of authentic self-expression. By embracing the Stoic path, we free ourselves from the trap of external validation, allowing us to live with integrity, confidence, and true peace of mind. Practicing wise kindness. Kindness is often viewed as one of the most virtuous qualities one can embody, in both personal and societal contexts. Kindness fosters relationships, creates positive environments, and allows individuals to show empathy and compassion for others. However, as with any virtue, there is a right way and a wrong way to practice kindness. Wise kindness, from a Stoic perspective, is the type of kindness that is measured, aligned with reason, and practiced in moderation. It's not driven by external validation or the desire to please others, but by the rational understanding of what is best for the common good, the individual, and the world at large. What is wise kindness? In Stoic thought, wise kindness goes beyond superficial, impulsive gestures. It involves acting in ways that reflect virtue, justice, and rationality. Wise kindness does not simply follow emotional urges to be nice or to be liked. Instead, it is a deliberate and thoughtful action motivated by understanding, wisdom, and an awareness of the greater good. In contrast to impulsive or excessive kindness, which might arise from guilt, the desire to please others, or even self-interest, wise kindness is moderated by reason. It is not about indiscriminate generosity, nor is it about performing acts of kindness for selfish gain or external approval. Instead, wise kindness is a form of kindness that is calculated, discerning, and always rooted in virtue. Key aspects of wise kindness. The Stoics, including philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, offered profound insights into what it means to practice virtue, including kindness, in a wise and balanced way. Here are key aspects of wise kindness as interpreted through Stoic philosophy. 1. Wisdom and discernment. The Stoic principle of wisdom involves the ability to discern what is truly good and what actions will best serve the greater good. In terms of kindness, this means recognizing that not every situation requires us to be kind in the same way or to the same extent. For example, offering help to someone who is capable of solving their own problem may inadvertently harm them in the long run. Wise kindness requires the ability to evaluate the situation and choose the response that aligns with both virtue and reason. 2. Justice and fairness. Wise kindness is rooted in justice. It's not about being kind to others at the expense of your own integrity or well-being, nor is it about favoring one person over another. The Stoic virtue of justice calls for fairness and the understanding that kindness should not be used as a tool for manipulation or to create imbalance. Wise kindness involves giving when it is appropriate and necessary, without compromising your sense of justice. 3. Temperance and moderation. The Stoic virtue of temperance involves acting with moderation and avoiding excess. While kindness is virtuous, excessive kindness can sometimes be detrimental, either to the person being helped or to the giver. Wise kindness is about finding balance. It is not about being overly generous or sacrificing your own needs for others. Rather, it is about offering help or compassion when it aligns with your values, resources, and the situation at hand. 4. Self-knowledge. A crucial element of practicing wise kindness is the knowledge of oneself. The Stoics believe that we must understand our own nature and limits before we can truly help others. Practicing wise kindness requires self-awareness about our emotional triggers. Personal resources. Time, energy, money, and boundaries. By understanding our own capacities, we can extend kindness that is sustainable and appropriate. For instance, helping others while neglecting your own needs or well-being can result in resentment or burnout, which is counterproductive to both your own peace and the true spirit of kindness. 5. Not seeking external validation. Wise kindness is not motivated by the need for approval or recognition. The Stoics, particularly Marcus Aurelius, emphasize that we should not base our happiness or sense of self-worth on the opinions of others. True kindness is performed without expectation of reward or praise, which means that wise kindness is authentic, not transactional. By acting with integrity and for the greater good, the Stoic practitioner extends kindness without the need for external validation or recognition. The role of eudaimonia in wise kindness. Eudaimonia, often translated as flourishing or living a good life, is a central concept in Stoic philosophy. According to the Stoics, living virtuously, living with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance is the key to achieving eudaimonia. Wise kindness plays a significant role in this pursuit. Wise kindness contributes to eudaimonia because it is an expression of living in accordance with nature, which includes both our rational nature as human beings and our social nature as interconnected individuals. By being kind in a measured, reasonable way, we contribute to the common good and promote harmony in our relationships, which ultimately leads to a life of inner peace and fulfillment. However, the Stoics would caution that kindness, like all virtues, must not be pursued at the expense of our own rational principles or inner tranquility. For instance, if an act of kindness causes you distress or compromises your well-being in a way that harms your pursuit of virtue, it is not wise kindness. The Stoic commitment to Eudaimonia means that everything we do, including acts of kindness, should contribute to our overall flourishing, both as individuals and within society. Wise kindness in relationships, boundaries, and reciprocity. One of the critical areas where wise kindness is particularly valuable is in our relationships with others. In relationships, whether with family, friends, colleagues, or even strangers, kindness can either strengthen or weaken the connection depending on how it is practiced. 1. Setting boundaries. In relationships, wise kindness often requires the ability to set healthy boundaries. While kindness may involve helping others or offering support, it is important to recognize when it is not in your best interest or the other person's best interest to give. Sometimes, kind actions may inadvertently encourage dependency or prevent others from developing their own resilience. Wise kindness means knowing when to say no, to avoid overcommitting or being taken advantage of. 2. Reciprocity and mutual respect. Stoicism teaches that relationships should be based on mutual respect and the sharing of virtue. Wise kindness recognizes that kindness is not a one-sided endeavor. It involves a balance of give and take. In Stoic terms, it is not just about being kind, but also about ensuring that the kindness we offer does not undermine justice or fairness. We should be kind in ways that promote mutual growth, respect, and virtuous actions in both parties, rather than engaging in a transactional dynamic where one party always gives and the other always receives. 3. Supporting others' virtue. Wise kindness also involves helping others in a way that supports their own development and virtue. For example, rather than offering a solution to someone's problem that enables their dependence on you, wise kindness might involve providing guidance that empowers the other person to find their own solution. This approach not only helps them become more self-sufficient, but also aligns with Stoic values of self-control and personal responsibility. Here are a few examples of how one might practice wise kindness in daily life from a Stoic perspective. 1. Offering help without expectation. You might offer help to a colleague who is struggling with a task, but you do so with the understanding that you are offering your assistance because it is the virtuous thing to do, not because you expect praise or want to be seen as the good person. The act is grounded in reason and an intention to promote the greater good, without any ulterior motives. 2. Choosing when to say no. When a friend asks for a favor that you know will overextend you or make you uncomfortable, wise kindness involves saying no in a respectful and compassionate way. You understand that your own well-being and capacity are important, and saying no is a kinder act in the long run, as it prevents you from being overburdened and enables you to remain available for more appropriate opportunities to help. 3. Giving constructive feedback. Wise kindness also involves giving others feedback in a way that promotes their growth. Rather than offering empty compliments or harsh criticisms, you provide constructive, honest feedback that helps the other person grow, always grounded in a desire to see them flourish. Living a life of wise kindness. In conclusion, wise kindness from a Stoic perspective is not simply about being nice or generous at all costs. Rather, it involves thoughtfulness, moderation, and a commitment to virtue. By practicing wise kindness, we align our actions with the Stoic virtues of wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, all while contributing to the common good and maintaining our own integrity and peace of mind. Wise kindness enables us to live authentically, without seeking external validation or sacrificing our own well-being. It empowers us to support others in a way that encourages growth and self-sufficiency, while also preserving our own autonomy and self-respect. By adopting this approach to kindness, we can live in a way that is both morally good and personally fulfilling, contributing to a life of flourishing and tranquility. The importance of boundaries. In the modern world, where demands and expectations from others seem constant and overwhelming, the ability to set healthy boundaries is an essential practice for mental well-being, personal growth, and the pursuit of virtue. The Stoic philosophy, with its emphasis on wisdom, self-control, and living in accordance with nature, provides a valuable framework for understanding why boundaries are so crucial. Boundaries, whether emotional, physical, mental, or relational, are not just protective measures. They are vital components of living a virtuous life and maintaining inner peace. From a Stoic perspective, boundaries are not about erecting walls or creating distance from others, but about understanding what is within our control and ensuring that we preserve our personal integrity, focus, and ability to live according to rational principles. What are boundaries, and why do they matter? At its core, a boundary is a limit or rule we establish for ourselves to protect our well-being, autonomy, and integrity. In Stoic terms, boundaries are about knowing what we can control our own actions, thoughts, and emotions, and recognizing what we cannot control the actions, thought, and emotions of others. Setting boundaries ensures that we do not allow external factors or the behaviors of others to disrupt our peace of mind or interfere with our ability to live virtuously. From a Stoic viewpoint, inner peace and self-mastery are two of the highest goals in life. Boundaries are necessary because they help us maintain these states by preventing external forces from imposing upon our minds and actions in ways that would lead us away from virtue. The Stoics would argue that wisdom and self-control are indispensable in the process of setting healthy boundaries, as they enable us to clearly define and enforce what is truly important. Boundaries and the dichotomy of control. One of the central teachings of Stoic philosophy is the dichotomy of control, the distinction between what is within our control and what is not. According to Stoic thinkers like Epictetus, we must focus our energy and attention on what is within our control, our thoughts, actions, and judgments, and accept with equanimity what is beyond our control, other people's behavior, external events. Boundaries are an application of this principle. They help us stay focused on what we can control and prevent us from becoming emotionally or mentally entangled in things that we cannot control. When we set a boundary with someone, we are essentially saying, "This is where my responsibility ends, and your behavior or emotions begin." Boundaries and self-respect. At the heart of Stoic philosophy is the concept of self-respect. The Stoics taught that to live virtuously and harmoniously, one must respect oneself and act in accordance with reason. Boundaries are an essential part of self-respect because they demonstrate that you value your own time, energy, and mental well-being. Without boundaries, we risk becoming overwhelmed, burned out, and losing sight of our own needs and values. When we fail to set boundaries, we might inadvertently allow others to infringe upon our personal space, our time, and our emotional reserves. This leads to resentment and frustration, which erodes our ability to act virtuously and with wisdom. In contrast, setting clear boundaries communicates that we take ourselves seriously and that we are committed to maintaining our own integrity, regardless of external pressures. Boundaries and justice. Maintaining equitable relationships. The Stoic virtue of justice is deeply intertwined with boundaries. Justice, in Stoic terms, involves treating others fairly and with respect, while also acting in ways that do not violate our own dignity. Boundaries are crucial for ensuring that our relationships remain balanced and fair, rather than becoming imbalanced or exploitative. In relationships without boundaries, one person may end up doing more than their fair share of work, offering more emotional support than they can handle, or giving up more time and resources than is reasonable. This creates an inequitable dynamic, where one person is overburdened while the other may become overly reliant or dependent. Setting boundaries is an act of justice because it ensures that both parties are treated fairly, that each person's needs and rights are respected, and that there is reciprocity in the relationship. For example, if a friend consistently asks for favors or emotional support without offering anything in return, establishing a boundary means acknowledging that healthy relationships are based on mutual respect, and that the other person must also take responsibility for contributing to the relationship. In this way, boundaries protect both our own well-being and the fairness of the relationship, allowing it to thrive in a healthy, balanced way. Boundaries and the Stoic practice of inner freedom. The Stoics taught that the ultimate goal of philosophy is to attain inner freedom, the ability to remain calm, rational, and virtuous regardless of external circumstances. Boundaries are essential in this process because they allow us to maintain our emotional and mental autonomy in the face of external pressures. For example, If a family member or friend consistently behaves in a way that causes stress or anxiety, setting boundaries allows us to protect our mental space. It is a way of saying, I will not allow your behavior to disturb my peace of mind, and taking ownership of our emotional responses. By respecting our own limits, we are able to cultivate resilience and inner freedom, which are core tenets of Stoicism. The consequences of ignoring boundaries. Ignoring or failing to set boundaries can have numerous negative consequences for our emotional and mental well-being. From a Stoic perspective, allowing others to violate our boundaries is an abdication of our responsibility to ourselves and to the pursuit of virtue. 1. Resentment and burnout. When we continuously say yes to others' demands without setting boundaries, we risk accumulating resentment and emotional exhaustion. This prevents us from maintaining our peace of mind and can erode our sense of self-respect. The Stoics would argue that, over time, this leads to an unvirtuous state where we are no longer acting according to reason, but rather out of fear, obligation, or the desire to please others. How to set Stoic boundaries. The Stoics offer practical guidance for setting boundaries that align with their philosophical principles. 1. Know yourself. The first step in setting boundaries is to understand your own needs, limits, and values. This requires self-awareness, knowing where your personal space lies, what drains your energy, and what is important to you. With this knowledge, you can confidently assert your boundaries without guilt or hesitation. 2. Be clear and direct. Stoicism encourages us to act with clarity and integrity. When setting a boundary, it's important to be clear and direct about your needs, without being defensive or apologetic. For example, if a colleague is constantly interrupting your work, you can say, I need uninterrupted time to focus on my tasks. Let's find another time to talk. 3. Stay calm and composed. Setting boundaries may sometimes provoke negative reactions from others. The Stoics emphasize the importance of remaining calm and composed no matter the external circumstances. If someone challenges your boundary, you can remain firm but respectful, understanding that your boundaries are an expression of wisdom and self-respect. 4. Maintain consistency. Once boundaries are set, it is important to maintain them consistently. Stoicism teaches us to cultivate self-discipline and persistence in our actions. If we allow boundaries to be violated repeatedly, we undermine our own sense of integrity and self-respect. Boundaries as a path to virtue. In conclusion, boundaries are essential in living a Stoic life because they allow us to protect our autonomy, maintain self-respect, and ensure that our relationships are balanced and just. By setting and respecting boundaries, we are better able to focus on what is within our control and prevent external influences from disrupting our peace of mind. Boundaries are not about isolation or rejecting others. They are about preserving our integrity and ensuring that we live in accordance with our rational principles and virtuous values. Through boundaries, we are able to live more intentionally, act with wisdom, and cultivate a life of inner freedom, tranquility, and flourishing. Finding balance. Kindness, when practiced mindfully and wisely, is a beautiful virtue. However, unchecked kindness, driven by the need for approval or the desire to please others, can lead to burnout, resentment, and a lack of self-respect. The Stoic approach to kindness emphasizes balance, self-awareness, and an unwavering commitment to one's own inner peace and virtue. By practicing kindness with wisdom, maintaining healthy boundaries, and not relying on external validation, you can cultivate a life of true fulfillment without compromising your Stoic principles. Ultimately, the Stoic view reminds us that the goal is not to be nice for the sake of others, but to act justly, rationally, and virtuously in a way that reflects our true nature. In doing so, we free ourselves from the traps of people-pleasing and external validation, allowing us to live with integrity and tranquility in a chaotic world. Kindness without wisdom becomes self-destruction. The Stoics knew virtue isn't about being liked, it's about being just, disciplined, and strong. If this perspective challenged you, that's good. It means you're thinking. Like, subscribe, and share this with someone who confuses being nice with being good. Until next time, stand firm and remember, compassion without boundaries is not virtue.